I am such an idiot. I just erased most of my stats by accident. Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be my first video back. I am so excited. I thought it would be fun to look back at my stats so far. Usually I tend to do this for mid-year, so we're going to count till the end of July and basically look back at my reading challenges. Am I aiming to hit those goals or not? What type of books I've been reading, what genre, etc, etc. Kind of just looking back. I like stats. Who doesn't, right? So let's look at them. So in the first 7 months of the year, I have read 73 books, which is insane. It means that I've read over 10 books on average per month. If we look at the stats per se, you're going to see that it's definitely not equal for each month. For example, January, I was really sick. I had like a stomach bug, and literally all I was doing in my life was like read or do anything like play video games and listen to audiobooks. That's literally was my life. So I ended up reading like 18 books in 1 month. That was crazy. And then this summer I had jaw surgery. So the first month I read a few books, but then like July I read like an insane amount. Was it 15? 15 books. So yeah. But then you look back at March, April, May, where I was pre-filming videos for both my channels because I knew I was going to recover, and I was reading like 4 books a month. So yeah, things balanced out pretty well anyway. I'm not planning on reading 18 books probably ever again in 1 month. I don't think I would ever have time. I would have to do this full time basically. But yeah, I think pretty consistently reading a good amount. I'm very happy with those numbers. My goal is to read 100 books this year, so clearly it seems like I will be hitting that goal pretty easily. I'm not planning on increasing it because I don't think I will have those type of circumstances ever again. But yeah, I should be hitting that goal for sure. The average number of pages that I'm reading per month is almost 4,000 pages with me, which means that I'm reading over 100 pages per day. And you know, I go in between like phases. I will go either read like 100 plus pages a day and listening to my audiobooks, and some days I don't touch books at all. So I think 100 plus pages a day is very, very good. Yeah, like I said, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. We're going to look at that. That's definitely what makes it easier for me to go through books. But over 100 pages a day, very happy with it. Oh, I almost forgot. It means that on average, the books that I read are over 350 pages per book. So 376 pages on average per book, which I'm happy with. This year, I'm still doing the like big book challenge. I'm trying to read books over 500 pages more regularly. So I think it helps increase my average. I usually don't tend to read that many books that are very, very short. Again, we're going to see that, but that seems like a pretty average number. I feel like 300, 400 is most of the books that I read. Actually, let me just look up that stat right away, because you're going to see by far the books that I read the most are between 300 and 400. And then after that, it's between 400 and 500. So that's definitely the type of books that I tend to grab. Genre, which is like my favorite stat pretty much to look at. I feel like I need to do a video where I compare like all those past years together, because my taste is similar yet changes a little bit. Usually, what is my most read genre? Fantasy. This year though, sci-fi is winning by a little bit. I don't know what's going on. I have been really in a sci-fi mood. I feel like a lot of them I tend to read and enjoy, so it makes me want to read more. And I think a lot of fantasy books that I've read, a few exceptions obviously, but like a lot of them I've been kind of about. So I feel like it's been why I've been favoring the sci-fi side of like the sci-fi fantasy. Usually that's like 50% of my reading, the mix of both. And it's still actually about 50%. It's like 48%. I've read 16 fantasy books and 19 sci-fi ones. So kind of close, but still, when I did my reorganizing my bookshelves, you could see that it was almost 50-50 fantasy sci-fi. So makes sense that they would be what I would read the most. Oh my god, my lisp is going to annoy me. It's going to improve, I promise, but like I'm like 3 months post-up, so the fact that I'm able to even film, we're happy about it. But the stats that are interesting to me is to look at the rest, because I always know it's going to be about 50% without trying of fantasy sci-fi. It's the rest that's important. I feel like that's where people like will categorize me in one section or the other, and they don't realize that I tend to read pretty much everything-ish. My third most read category is contemporary. I do tend to mix contemporary fiction, literary fiction, all in one, but 14%, so 10 books that I've read so far this year were in those categories. And then actually, you know what? My second category should be mystery, horror, thriller. they're all together, okay? I know people will like separate horror, but I just put them all together. You can see them separately on the screen. But about, what, 21% of the books that I've read this year are in those categories. So that's kind of a lot. That's like, what, 19 books that I read so far. Most of them this summer. I'm doing my wrap-ups at like some of the next videos. Before the end of the month, I will review all the books that I've read during the summer. By month, because otherwise it's going to be way too long of a video. So 3 videos of wrap-up coming up, a bunch of reviews, and I read 1,000,001 mystery thrillers. I've just been on a kick, finally. I feel like I hadn't read that many in the last like year, and then I read more in like that 1 month or 2 than like the whole year. So if you are into those genre, wait up for those wrap-ups because I will have a ton of reviews. Then my like 5th most read category will be nonfiction. Not really surprising, kind of a mix of a bunch of the ones from like my Goodreads reading challenge for this year, a few from that. Otherwise, it's kind of a mix of like science or just like popular ones that I've been wanting to read. Then the last category that I've actually read anything from is historical fiction, which is always a bit surprising. It's not my main genre, but once in a while during the year, I do tend to read a couple. So far I've read 4, so 5% of the books that I've read. I've read 0 classics so far, which to my shame, I did not finish Le Comte de Monte Cristo in July. I'm working on it, don't worry. It's gonna happen one day. But yeah, I've read 0 classics. That will need to change during the end of the year. Not that I have a specific goal on that, it's just that I usually try and read some. I usually just read some like that. Although I do read some classic sci-fi, so like that one is kind of more vague, but 0 classics so far this year. This year, so far, I have read a majority of adult books. I feel like I have been reading a lot of meh YA books. So again, it's not like purposely avoiding them. It's just that when you read a bunch that you're a little whether it's a genre or age range, I feel like I just tend to distance myself afterwards. So it's not really any other way that none of them that I've read were that great. I'm not reading a series that I can't put down. There's none that I'm dying to read that are coming out, although that's not fully true. I'm dying for the next book by Philip Pullman, The Secret Commonwealth, I think, from the same like Is Dark Material universe. I am dying for that one. But like I've been really in the mood for a bunch of the books on my list that were like adults, / a lot of reading challenges that I'm doing are mostly adult books. So I mean, still, 60% of the book, 60 books that I've read so far were adult, so 82%, and then 13 YA, so 18%. So not that bad. I mean, I still read a couple. My star rating, currently, for the first 7 months, it's actually kind of high. I think it's about like 3.5 stars. And if I look back in the like last year, I think it was much lower than that. Last year was a pretty terrible reading year. And actually, if I put the Goodreads stats so you can see it, I have read more at this point, 5 stars in the first like half of the year than I had last year in the whole year. I'm just gonna like spoil alert for the end of the year, but currently August and like end of July, I've read a lot of really terrible books. But still, overall the year, I've read a bunch of 5-star books. I am dying to talk about some of them again in my wrap up. They're coming up, but like dying to talk about them. So many great ones, especially sci-fi. Oh my god. I need to do another like beginner's guide to sci-fi because I have so many recommendations. As far as gender for author, I tend to like not notice it. Like usually I know that a lot of classics and stuff that I have to read, that I read are written by men, and like it just like that balance itself out with the more like recent books that I read. So 33 books were written by men and then 40 by women. So it's like 45-55. Usually my goal in my head is to do 50-50. And every year I seem to achieve that goal without doing anything. So I'm okay with that number. The year that the books were published. I always like to look at that stat. But this year, I feel like it's a little skewed because I'm doing my Goodreads reading challenge. If you don't know, I'm reading a bunch of the winners or the runner-ups in each categories that I'm interested in from Goodreads last year. And then I'm doing my own like event awards at the end of the year, and I'll do that every year. I'm really excited to see which ones will be finalists and everything at the end of the year so I can prepare for next year. But it means that a lot of the books that I've been reading were published in 2018, right? So 28 books so far that I've read this year were published in 2018, which is 38%. So I feel like that challenge definitely tends to like favor that year for the books that I've been reading. But I have read 20 books so far that were published in 2019. And I think it's because I've been using my library a ton, which again, you're going to see it. So like 27% of the books that I've been reading were published right now. It's because I've been very lucky putting my name on the waiting list very early. So I've been able to read a bunch of them that way. So yeah, I think it's been nice to be able to give you reviews about books that are newer. Let me know if that's something that you like, because once again, genre, I mix everything, but also for like publishing dates, I like to mix recent books and then older ones that appeal to me. And it seems to be something you appreciate too, that it's a mix of both. So I didn't read that many that are older, like before 2000, for example. I've read like 5, I think. So not a lot, but we were expecting that since I mentioned I read 0 classics so far. My favorite stats. Did I borrow that book or is it a library book? Because I mentioned it. I use 2 libraries. One of them is free. The other one I have to pay $80, which it hurts my soul every single year. But it's obviously worth it because it's a bigger library and I have access to a lot of newer books. So I don't have to like, would you be interested? I'm planning on doing Q&A like now, soon. And would you be interested in me calculating how much money I've saved? I think like I've seen like those type of memes going around on Twitter and I'm like, it would be interesting to see because I use a lot of them as audiobooks too, so it's like even more expensive. Let me know. I might have to calculate this. But so far this year, again, out of 73 books that I've read, 29 were books that I own, so 40%. 33 were from my library, so like 45%. So like people are, I've gotten a few comments saying like, oh, you're always complaining about your library, blah, libraries are great. And I'm like, yes, they are. I use mine, which is where I'm allowed to complain a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there's always some positive and negatives. I'm definitely someone that wants to promote the library. You do not have to buy most of your books used. Most of mine are not bought used. Most of these are actually bought from my library when they have sales, which they recently increased the prices and I cried a little bit. It's still about like $1 per book, but like it used to be 25 cents like when I started YouTube. So I can complain a little bit. Still cheap, still used. I'm just saying. I like to complain sometimes. And then I've gotten a few ARCs this year, which either on like NetGalley or Edelweiss, and I've been sent a couple, which you're gonna see that in my next haul video. But I've been like reading some because of that. So 11 books so far that I've read this year were ARCs, so 15%. So it seems pretty like 50-50 usually, like own and library. I think that right now ARCs is starting to change things, but not bad, not bad. And then the format. Physical books, 24 were physical, so 33%, so a third of the books that I read. Audiobooks, 29 books, which is 40%. It's partially because, again, I was traveling and I've had like the surgery and everything, so I couldn't really read and like bend down. And so I was using audiobooks that way too. And then when I got sick, again, I was telling you, doing other things while listening to audiobooks made me able to continue reading, even though I didn't really have that much time. So like 40%, so 29 books I've read so far this year were audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I would continue to rave about them forever and ever. I'm definitely not someone that thinks they don't count as reading. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. They do count and they're wonderful. And a lot of people ask me how I read so much. That's one of the ways that I do it because they work really well for me. Like 95% of the time I'm able to listen to them. It's very rare, but sometimes there are some that I'm like, I can't focus on it for some reason. So like I don't do it that way. But I'll definitely do a video about how I read so much and my favorite audiobooks. I think that would be interesting. But as always, I feel like every time I do a video or I plan a video like best of each category or blah, 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 I always want to like just read a couple more, you know what I mean? So I think what I'm gonna do for like, maybe not best audiobooks, but like best sci-fi, for example, or something like that, I will include like maybe a different video where I include like the ones I'm dying to read that I haven't read yet or something, because otherwise I know the comment section will annoy me like, oh, you need to read that one. I'm like, I know, I just don't have enough time. And then the last category, the last format is ebooks, and I've read 20, so 27%. It's higher than I thought it would be, but it's because a lot of the ARCs that I read are ebooks. I don't love ebooks, not because I hate them and I'm like, ooh, physical books and everything. It's because I don't have a Kindle. In Canada, they don't link directly to your library, which is super annoying. So I'm stuck reading either on my phone, which is currently completely dead. I am like hoping we're going to be able to salvage it because I lost part of vlog, which and all my pictures, damn it. Yeah. So I either have to read them on my phone, which or my computer, which is even worse. Like, I've read a few big arcs on my phone, on my computer, and it's hell. Like, I'll read the first half pretty normally, and then I can't finish it because it's so annoying for some reason. Anyway, beside the point. I still read quite a few that are ebooks. I think if we finally had access to Kindles and library, like blah, 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 you know what I mean? I would probably use it more, but I'm never going to like it as much as physical book. It's very useful. I completely understand why other people like them, and I don't mind using it again for library books sometimes, but I'll always be a like physical book person. I can't help it. I wish it were different. It's not. Is it me or my voice sounds different? You're gonna have to bear with me for another few weeks / maybe months before I'm perfectly normal, back to like where I was. But yeah, sometimes I have a lisp, sometimes I have like a different sound of voice. One day I'll be more swollen on the one side than the other. It's life. How am I doing with my reading challenges, which is the tricky part? So we were saying the big book challenge and the reading Goodreads reading challenge. So the big book challenge, my goal is always to pick one every month and try and read at least 10 within that year. And so far this year, the first part of the year, I was doing pretty well, even though considering I had to pre-film like a crazy person for like 2.5 months before getting surgery. So I wasn't reading as much. So I've been like pushing a month late, and now it's really coming to a point where I'm actually late. So for September, I technically would have to pick 3 because I didn't read the last 2. Well, I'm currently trying to finish one. So I think what I'm going to do is September, I might not give myself one and try to just read these 2 and like catch up and then be able to possibly read 11 out of 12. We'll see. So that one is kind of So for my Goodreads reading challenge, so far, the minimum I had to read were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 13. Okay, so my minimum number was 16. And so far, actually that one I did read. Haha. So far I've read 12 out of 16. So I shouldn't complain about the big book ones. I'm still doing well. And I know for a fact I've been reading a couple other ones that were in like, you know, not the number 1 runner-up or the winner. A couple other ones because I want to be able to compare, right? I won't be able to do that for each category because I think in total it's like 20 books per category and there's 16 categories. That would be an insane amount of books to read, but like I wanted to read a couple for most categories of the ones I'm the most interested in, so I can kind of have like a little bit of issue trying to find the real winner in my head or something. So yeah, that one is doing really good. Oh, I also had my top 19 of 2019, which I feel like every year I suck in that one. I think I'm gonna do some changes next year so I can like actually read those books more. I think I have a good idea actually. But so far out of 19, I have read 6. But a few of the ones are like very high on my TBR. I'm really hoping to get to them. So maybe if I can do half, you know, there's half the year left, I can like try. We'll see. So this is how I am doing so far this year. I think things are not doing too well. Usually I have some goals for like uploading. I'm trying to upload every month, every week, hopefully. But like every week, I mean, and even when I was gone, I was uploading most weeks, at least 1, sometimes 2. And I'm hoping I'm going to be able to increase that to like 2, sometimes 3. Again, bear with me. I'm going to do my best. I'm planning on doing a lot more reading vlogs or like challenges like that because I wasn't able to, obviously I was healing. Although my last one I did attempt to and it wasn't that bad. So I feel like I'm going to be able to do more and I'm super excited. I can't wait. I have so many great ideas of videos and I'm dying to just start filming again. So I hope you enjoyed all the stats. It's always fun. I will link down below the template. Is that how you call it? That I used. Another booktubers creates them. She's amazing. I'll link her channel and that template down below. It's an older one. She does a different one every year. I've just kind of adapted it to my own like needs. So yeah, it's gonna be it. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give a big thumbs up, subscribe. You definitely don't want to miss all those videos coming up. I'm actually gonna put some on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.